We are excited to get started with teaching remotely using Merge. I'm going to start here a few minutes early so that as you're jumping in, you have a chance to get engaged and interact and have a chance to kind of just get prepared. So I'm going to let everybody join in. We had quite a few people register, which is wonderful. So great to have you all here. We're going to be talking a lot about Merge. I'm seeing a lot of states and countries out there represented that are joining in. You guys all love Merge, and I love Merge too. And some of the issues that we're facing right now and things that we're experiencing as educators and even as students, it is just a changing time. So talking to Merge and talking to the company about how to address this was the best way we felt to give you some resources and advice, and also learning a little bit more about Merge and what they're offering and things that are changing even as of today. So it's really cool. Great. So great to have you guys. Thank you so much for adding in the chat. Now, just real quick, you do have an opportunity, instead of asking questions in the chat, feel free to add it in the Q&A. I can already see a few things down there. Now, not only am I going to be checking that out, but also in the process, Merge may be answering some of your questions as well. And what's great about that is that those of you joining in, you may want to ask that question or maybe not even think about that question, but those are things that you can reference back to and have access to as well. I will be posting a list of all these resources as well, but in the chat, you're going to see a lot of the links that are going to be delivered in this presentation. So feel free to click on those links and go to them, or when you follow up with me, then we'll have a chance to go back through. You can go back through those links, go back through the presentation on Facebook. So there should be quite a bit of things here for you to follow up on for sure. Oh, we have Dubai, yay! Ontario, that's great. Spain, okay, we have lots of people joining in from all over the world, which is so awesome to see. I'm so excited to see everybody coming in. And what's really exciting about the international side of it is that Merge was so limited in the US for a little while that when people outside of the US wanted it, it was so costly to get it to them. And now it's like everywhere. So what a great thing to have access to such an incredible resource and available to you really wherever you're at. So perfect time for this for sure. I love Merge frog dissection, which is great. We're going to be talking about that too. Okay, so we have quite a few people joining in, and we'll probably continue to have more coming in, and feel free to, again, post your Q&A. We'll definitely address those questions that you have along the way, and then I will end here with that. So I'm going to bring up my presentation and screen share for you guys so that you guys can go through this with me. All right. Here we go. All right. So takes a second to pull up, but I'm going to let that pull up here. Inside of these slides, again, some of the resources will be linked in the chat, so feel free to save those. We'll also have that reference to have available to you later on today. So you'll have that all available to you then. Okay, so here we are, we're remote learning. What a crazy time right now to be in a situation like this. But it's funny because people like Rochelle and Deborah that are on right now, and I know Mary Alice will be joining as well. You know, those friends that are out there, many of you that I even just came across your names, I know because of remote learning. We've been doing this. This is a really interesting time because it's actually requiring people that haven't been doing this and are really taking the initiative to get started with that. So it's really exciting, but at the same time, it's great for those that have already started and jumped in that way and have already been connected, because there's just an enormous amount of resources coming out right now. And I can name several companies that have taken initiatives, and Merge being one of them, to help support learning done in a very unique, different way right now than the traditional classroom. So as we go through these resources and tools, hopefully they will inspire you to bring this back to your kids, no matter where they're located and their current situation. Hopefully this will be a tool to use with them all. All right, so we already went through and where you're located, and it was great to see people from all over the world joining in, and even on Facebook participating right now. part of the live discussion. All right, so first off, I just want to introduce myself. My name's Jamie Donnelly. If I have not connected with you in person before, maybe connected with you through the website or at a conference, or maybe you just are connected to Merge and you have no idea who I am. I have, really an advocate of using immersive technology, so augmented and virtual reality in the classroom. And this is just a crazy awesome time to bring this kind of technology, because I don't know about you, but especially about remote learning, this is an interesting time because our kids, I have 3 kids, they're getting packets sent home, and they're trying to scramble to fill in the day for school, when really we have this amazing opportunity at innovative learning. And so using tools like Merge with immersive technology is one of those ways to really not just capture their attention, but deepen their learning and really impact how they look and view at learning in the future. So it's great. I'm loving this topic right now and loving sharing this out, and hopefully you'll be able to bring back some of these resources. Now you can follow me on Twitter. I posted on here, but I'm also on other social channels. Not as active on Instagram as I should be, but I'm working on it. And you can also find me on my website at arvrinedu.com. And that's also linked there in the QR code. So I would love to connect with you. I would love for you to subscribe and have the information. There was tons of content that went out this past month in March, and it went out to all my subscribers every day of content. And there'll tons of new stuff coming out right now. So what a great time to be aware of those new things coming out. So definitely check that out and get connected. And I'd love to follow up with you again soon. Okay, so first things first, what is augmented reality and AR? So this is something I learned from Deb a long time ago. Deborah Atchison on here is, she would do presentations and we would share on augmented reality, and people would realize that it's not accelerated reader, and people would I'm in the wrong room and leave, and it was just kind of this funny thing that nobody really knew what AR was back then. And now, thankfully, we're at a season where people are starting to get it. But just to get an idea of how this functions with the Merge Cube specifically, is that we're layering something digital on top of our physical world. So we're seeing our real world. It's giving us this illusion that we're seeing this technology or this digital image or video layered inside, this 3D object layered inside of our real world. So as you can see there, you see the sun that's layered on top of the Merge Cube. But what's really unique about augmented reality is we went from having kind of these paper, you have to scan the paper with your device, then you see something on top of the paper, and it's like a barcode. When it sees this trigger image, it sees this image in that app, it says this is what should be layered on top of it. And as you move it, it moves with you, because it's like that, it's stuck to that, tethered to that barcode. But what's really different about the Merge Cube is that you have all these sides. You have these 6 sides, and as you're moving and rotating, it is picking up the rotation. So as it's turning, it's picking up how to turn and adjust and modify whatever you're experiencing. And you're going to see several different experiences today. But whatever you're experiencing as it turns, if you notice here on the Merge Cube, you have this great silver, very shiny. So even in dim conditions, like last night when I was working on some of this stuff, it was pretty dark because everybody's asleep. And as it's dark, I'm still able to pick it up, because somehow, some way, this silver just helps pull in any light and really show a contrast in color between the black and that silver. So because of that, it picks it up really well. So those people that are using Merge Cubes, which again, these cubes are the best. They're great. They're $15, but they are, squishy. So if you throw them at a kid, they don't get hurt technically. And you also have the opportunity to really engage with the kids in something that lasts. I carry these around in my backpack forever, constantly on people, interact with them, engage with them, wiping them down and sanitizing them. And at the end of the day, they last. You don't see this getting rubbed off, and, you see it really sustaining a classroom environment. So I love the Merge Cube. But in the Merge Cube, as you experience the apps and the different things, they all use the same cube, which is a little bit different than most typical augmented reality trigger images. So In this case, we're going to see some great interactions. In some cases, you're also going to see an opportunity to where the merge cube is there, but you can also bring it into your real world outside of the merge cube as well. So pretty cool stuff. Now this is what is different. This is almost like a, I don't know, a merge hack, because inside of this amazing tool and resource that was revealed to us a few years back, people started doing, I think it was Gabe that started this, and he found a way to take basically his merge cube and scan it and get this, print, and then make it larger. And in augmented reality, the larger your trigger image, the larger the experience. So if it's teeny tiny, like I have a teeny tiny merge cube somebody gave me one time, and that teeny tiny merge cube, it's a teeny tiny experience. But with a large one, it's a large experience. I think it was James McCrary, he was saying that he wanted to paint sides of the wall and have that listed and layered there, so that as they're walking around this huge wall, they're seeing this huge sun or whatever that experience is. So it's pretty cool. But what Merge has done is, really in the past, it was kind of like you don't really want to take their copyright. As a matter of fact, I get questions about that all the time. Isn't that copyright? Yes, it is. It is absolutely copyright. But what Merge has really made accessible is they saw the life come out of that, people's enthusiasm of making those big cubes, and they let people run with it, which is great. But then in addition to that, now that we're in this situation with remote learning, they've really given the tools and the resources to help you use this with your students who are at home. And so in this case, you can actually print out your merge cubes. My husband's a science teacher. He's a 7th grade science teacher. And some of the students that don't have access to being able to print things out or have access to those resources to be able to do that, there's packets of things that they can go and pick up from the school. And in this case, this can absolutely be the layer, that PDF that you have printed out for those students that maybe don't have access to printing it out on their own printer. So then they can make these incredible cubes. Now, are they the most durable? No, but there's some great recommendations in there. I've only printed it out really on regular paper, but printing it out on cardstock is a wonderful idea. It helps it really last longer. But in our temporary of using this, is a great way to get your kids using and engaged in this learning. And then as they come back to class, you bring back out those merge cubes so those kids can then interact for the long haul. So if you don't see this link here that should be in our chat now is mergecube.com/paper. That's going to pull in their Wakelet, and their Wakelet has a ton of resources, including the PDF. So you don't want to just share out the PDF, because people need the additional resources aligned with using this. So as you're going through and you're getting all the incredible resources, then the other teachers and yourself can also access all of the new updates and things coming out to help you with remote learning. So we're going to start off by first downloading the Merge Explorer app. So this is going to be an app that in the past if you've been watching Merge for a little while, you may recognize some of these apps. So the one at the bottom, the Galactic Explorer app that was out, Mr. Body up top, and those were basically apps that you had to go and find and then download independently and go and see it within the apps. But what Merge has done is they've started consolidating all of their apps and putting it into one. So that Merge Explorer app is going to have Mr. Body and Galactic Explorer already inside. And so that's great, because these are free apps that you can then bring in and use with your students immediately. Now, what you also will see is maybe a newer one, if you haven't seen this one before, up at the top right corner. And that one is Terraforming Earth. And that one is crazy awesome. It's one of my favorites. As a matter of fact, when I was talking to somebody from Merge a while back when this was coming out, they were like, well, which app do you recommend? And I was like, oh my gosh, Terraforming Earth is so engaging and interactive. Now, I don't know if everybody said that and they're like, yeah, let's do it, but I don't care. It's on there. It's free. It's available. So what a great way to get your students engaged in that content. Now I'm going to demo some of that for you so you can see that here shortly. But just know that now, instead of going and looking over here and over here, I mean, a whole list of all those apps and where to download everything, now you can go to that one place to go access all of those tools, which is amazing. We're also going to be looking at Object Viewer. And this is another app that you can download. Now this one is great because we're moving from just taking in information and exploring and engaging with it to our students actually producing 3D content and engaging in that. Now there is a library, an incredible library, we'll look at that too. But using Object Viewer gives your students a chance to be those content creators. And so there is so much stuff out there that your students can do, so many applications that they can pull from, lots to do inside of Object Viewer, really creative ways. So hopefully you're gonna find a way to use Object Viewer with your kids to display knowledge really in a very unique way, and that is in 3 dimension in their space, and using the technology that is for their time. So Object Viewer is a completely free app, and it's just a wonderful tool to get your students really building. So that is going to be linked here for us in here as well. So definitely check that out and download it. All right. So here we are now looking at the EDU platform. And so Merge EDU is a way for you to kind of manage everything in one place, that login, that content that you've built for the Object Viewer that you can access and load, the access that you might have, your license if you have a license. So all of those pieces are there. Now it is not required, which is great for the privacy of our students, so they can actually engage and interact with these apps without ever having to plug in their own information. So the privacy for our younger students is there. But the benefit of having a Merge EDU account is really looking at uploading 3D content and bringing in their own content. And so when you're doing that, you are required to have your own login in order to upload content. Of course, in the classroom setting, that would be something that the teacher can work with our littles to make sure that content's getting fed through them as well. But this is really a great, when I'm sharing on this stuff, this is something that I kind of do as mandatory to get them through the full cycle of Merge stuff, including developing something in 3D, we do that briefly, to actually producing that through Object Viewer. So we go through the upload process and viewing it, what that looks like, and stamping it and such. So they do create an account and they do go through that full process of what that looks like, which is really, really interesting and unique. All right, going back to the Merge Explorer app. So real quick, I do want to point out when you're opening up this app that you have a chance to look at the tutorial. That is something I always forget to mention, so I literally have it written down. Don't forget tutorial. The tutorial on there is pretty amazing, and they really walk you through how to use the Merge Explorer app. It teaches you along the way, but it's fun and interactive and engaging. So as you're going through it, or your students are going through it, you have a chance to really get in there and see how this app works. So that tutorial is fantastic. It's a lot of fun, and it gives you all the ins and outs of using the Merge Explorer app and your Merge Cube. So here you can see, and if you notice here, you're gonna say, oh, there's a glare there. You're right, I don't like that glare either. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to mirror this on my screen on my computer. So I'm using my phone, and I'm gonna mirror that on here. And I'm going to show you kind of what that looks like. And I'm going to also stop sharing, and then I'm going to reshare this with you here. So inside of the app, all right, I'm going to go ahead and just share my whole screen. So that way, for you to be able to look at this, I'm going to have this pulled up here with my phone, and then I'm also going to have the presentation pulled up over here on my screen. So that will give us a chance to see both. All right. Here we go. Okay, so inside of the app, you can see here here we go. You can see here that we have a chance to go into that tutorial, which is going to be the first thing that you're going to see up on your screen. So when you tap it, it's going to walk you through literally that tutorial. Hopefully that shows up for us here. go. All right, go ahead and reshare. And I'll bring that over so that we can all see. I have all these windows that you guys aren't seeing here with this Zoom call. So I'm trying to move and organize everything so that you can see here. Perfect. Okay, so here you can see the tutorial, and I can literally go through that, and it walks me through step by step by step of using that merge cube. There are some great content in here. If you look inside of the Explorer app, there are so many things for you to go through. It's enormous, so I'll show you here before we end a little bit more about that. So I definitely want you to be aware that there are content that we're going to cover, but then it's just a piece of all the things that are available to you right now. All right. And I'm not able to watch the chat, so either from Merge, if Brandon or Stephanie wanted to chat in, if you guys notice something that I need to address, feel free to let me know. I'll be happy to switch that over. Okay. Let's see. I think the first one I listed was Terraforming Earth, and yes, it is. Perfect. Okay, so in the Terraforming Earth app, you actually have access to the Earth. So we're going to look at that briefly. And over here on the right-hand side, you can see on my screen that there's content here. Now, I will go into a little bit more depth here soon about accessing that content, but you can see the content here, and I'm going to go ahead and just choose play. We're going to look at the core. And here I am now engaged with this content. And as I'm going through, I can go through each piece by piece by piece and engage with it independently. I can also stamp that into my space and stamp it multiple times. I can layer things myself as a student. I can even separate down here at the bottom. That slider gives me a chance to really separate and look at all of that information here one at a time. So there are several different pieces here that you can look through. It goes through the tectonic plates and subduction here. It shows a really great way of students seeing that how that happens and stirs up that energy and the result of that. And of course we end with Volcano. So that Terraforming Earth is a free app inside of Merge Explorer. So that is a great one for you to check out. Now, the next one is A Frog's Life, and that one lets you go in, and this one actually was not a free app, but one of the things that I want to point out to you that I think is just the coolest thing is that Merge has said, you know what, every week we're going to open access one of our content cards. So remember when I was showing you all the cool stuff, and you may not see all of it, and you may not know how much is out there, but right now A Frog's Life was released last week for free. So you can go into A Frog's Life and you can go through the life cycle of the frog and look at even dissecting the frog there at the end. So it gives you a great opportunity to go into those activities and see from A Frog's Life that you really didn't have access to before. And on that front, see, the new one this week that came out officially today is Water and Weather. And so that one here, you have a chance to be able to go through and look at the atmosphere, and there are activities that your students can then engage with. Here we go. Look at the atmosphere. If we're looking at, you know, what that looks like from an airplane perspective, and then you have you know, space essentially up there that you're going to look at and how many miles that is, and really getting a perspective. So that's one piece of that. And then you can even go into the water cycle and having a chance to go through the water cycle here and seeing that coming down, condensation, the runoff, precipitation. And so as you're looking and exploring with that, you know, you can go through and see each cycle independently and how that is interacting. And that's all again done just in the palm of your hand. So to really get a piece of that for some of our students, they really need to see those independent, and they don't need to see it in just a picture. They need to see it in something that they can explore and look around it and make sense of. So there are great experiences in here that are available as of today for free for everyone. And again, this is something that's going to be released every single week. You're going to get a new content card. So definitely check out that Explorer app is going to be the way to go. So every week you have this new opportunity to bring this back into your classroom. All right, so I do want to point out something that I think is really important, and that is the accessibility function here with Immersive Reader. And so as we're going through, let's say I'm going to go into, looking for one that I don't already have covered here at some point. I'll just go ahead and open up Oceans on Earth. Okay, so here is, inside of here, this is a way for your students to have the content. Now, what you're going to find as a problem is typically with immersive technology, either you have an amazing experience, or outside of immersive technology, you just have content, right? Like the book, or it's read to you, or whatever, the content's there, but very rarely do you see the two pieces together. And that's what Merge has done. Their connection to the standards, the new NGSS, New Generation Science Standards, are all linked in here. So as you're going through this content, it's all being directly tied in with those standards. And so that content is important, really important. But in addition to that, you're going to notice that you can have it read to you. And if I push that here, it's going to actually play out loud for the student. Of course, I'm mirroring right now, so it's not going to come through, but the student can actually hear that. But then if they go into the Immersive Reader aspect of it, they're able to see that content very specific to them. So I have created this, pastel purple kind of color. My daughter, who has dyslexia, she prefers to have that more purple background color when she's reading things. So you can change the color of the words. You can change, identify different aspects of this. You can actually go in there and do quite a bit within Immersive Reader. If you have not seen this made by Microsoft, this is a total game changer in my opinion. The size of the text is going to be important for those students maybe that have vision impairment. So there's just incredible things, even the font type, which is important for some of our kids. So all of those things are available. And as you can also see, it's going to help identify. So even in the speech, you can look at your verbs and your adjectives. But then when you come over and look at translation, I think that's another huge game changer right now. Our kids are at home. Do they have access to the tools of being able to get something translated for them that they would typically have when they're in the classroom? Maybe not. And so because of that, giving them the access to these tools, but also in their preferred language, helps eliminate that barrier that they may be facing, significant barrier that they're facing right now. So this is an incredible option to have all built into the content that they're receiving. So you can look at it by the word, by the document, and you can translate that into so many different languages as well as locations. So love the fact that Merge has really made it a way for our kids to have access to the content in here, all within Immersive Reader. So that's all built in. I'm going to go back into the app here. And that is, to me, a huge feature that should be in every technology that we're bringing into our classroom. All right. So just want to make sure I didn't skip through one here because it is running a little bit slow because I'm mirroring and I'm trying to show. So Object Viewer here, just want to point out the fact that in Merge, if you guys want to go ahead and just put that link out there for Object Viewer again, this again is an opportunity for our kids to experience content through the library, for sure. There's an enormous library. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Object Viewer. And when they are accessing these tools, they're also getting access to creating their own content. So here is the massive library that they have access to right now. And that will go ahead and load. Look at the black cat. I think I'll put a black cat in here for my good friend, Michelle. All right, so as that loads, once you tap that, it will ask you to download, and then you can place that 3D object here in your space. You can even stamp it. So if you notice at the bottom, I tap that stamp. And then now I'm going to be Rochelle right here because I'm going to add a few more of these and more of these. So there we go. So I brought Rochelle here with us into this space. But one of the major great opportunities here in Object Viewer is submitting your own content. And so if I go into my objects, this is where I've loaded different 3D objects. This is some of the things that I did recently in my blogs from last month is using a tool called Gravity Sketch. And I'm going to shout out to Brandon there in the background with Merge because he was the one that inspired this. But with Gravity Sketch, you can come in here, and this is something I built in virtual reality inside of a headset. And then I can see my characters that I made briefly and showed that. And I'm going to go ahead and make them a little bit larger. And I'm going to stamp them in my space as well. So there we go. So I could bring in that content here. But one of the really cool things is that there are collections out there. If I go into my collections, I can actually share out collections of content. So instead of independent, looking at just one item at a time, I can look at a general topic that's being covered. They also have collections that they've shared out. The museum collection, which is great. You can create your own museum tour in your own space. You have the dinosaurs and city and so space and looking at all that. One popular one, of course, is the viruses, and that's because we are all looking at the coronavirus right now. Let's see if I can get that up here. I'm going to just put that up here in our space because that is one of the main reasons why we're meeting like this in this space right now. And that is because we should have our students really looking into this. Our kids should be solving these problems. Our kids should be involved in this. And some of that is giving them access to what this is. And I know for me, when I shared this out the first time, to me, it made it less scary when I saw what it was. You know, the unknown is almost more scary than actually just looking at it and walking around it and exploring with it. So giving your students a chance to actually see maybe some of these common viruses and things that you can pull in. And that, again, is all in those collections. So if you go through that, you can have them compare the different viruses, how that affects your body differently. I mean, there's just such a great opportunity for your kids to take that and run with it in a million different directions. So collections are pretty awesome. That collection is available for you right now. Your kids can go in there and have access to it. So lots of great stuff happening inside of Object Viewer. I mean, just look at all this content. Look at all these different topics you can bring in. And even ISTE. I mean, I think, you know what I think, Merge? I think we need to have 3D scanner at ISTE in November because that got pushed out. And we need to have people scanned in here. And then we just need to have a bunch of people in here. That would be a lot of fun. But, you know, you look at all of this stuff and you look at how you can bring this back into your classroom and these different topics. So outside of the science standards, you know, people are like, well, that's more of a science app. But really an Object Viewer, it's any topic, any subject, anything you can possibly imagine. So give that tool to your students and let them just go wild and crazy and creating some awesome stuff. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide. And I do want to mention, you know, that Object Viewer gives you a chance to really just have your students look at things in a way that is their preference. I think all of our preference, when we can see it visually in our space, we're going to be able to make sense of content in a different capacity. We're going to be able to retain that content much differently. Giving the illusion that's in our space really helps bridge the gap that we typically have with a video or a picture in a book. And so this gives them a chance to really explore at, you know, at a level that they want to and their preference on how long they spend looking at it and where they place it and how they engage with that content. So also inside of Object Viewer, you know, you can then go in and create content. And that to me is the game changer here. This is initially when Object Viewer was released, the goal was to get our kids to build. And so there are ways that your students can go out and create the content. And then with that content that they have, then they can upload that 3D content into Object Viewer and have it stamped in their space. So what an incredible, I mean, we talked about cities, right, going through here, and you can say, okay, well, you know, you want to do a city builder, we'll have every kid have a different part of what that city is going to look like. Build your collections and let them just go crazy. What can they build? What is possible? What is our world going to look like tomorrow? How are things going to change? Let them build that in 3D and let them show us what are some of our solutions that, you know, maybe elected officials and those then leadership right now haven't come to conclusions with. just opening up that door for our kids, I think, is really powerful, and it really lets them own that technology themselves. So you go from creating it, and whatever content you created in, you can pull in from like Sketchfab, which has free 3D objects, or you can go out and build it yourself. And then as you do that, you basically download that content and upload it into Merge EDU, which is what I showed you earlier. And then you upload that object there into Object Viewer. And then it shows up in my collection. There's also codes that it creates, so you can easily share with others. Inside of here, if I were to show you this museum collection and I wanted to go in to just one of those items like the vase, there is an item number that's attached to that. And so all of those things here, I think it is, let's see, I do it without. Just wanting to pick up something else here. Well, I'll show you inside of my collection. Inside of my collections, there is a code that is connected to everything that you create. So if I wanted to share out that gravity sketch with you and you wanted to see what that looked like right now, you can actually go in. I know it's on Object Viewer. Now I'm just drawing a blank. Merge, feel free to share. I know it's inside of EDU, but now I'm starting to draw a blank on where it's at on here. There we go. So here is the object code down here at the bottom of my screen. And it gives me that 92BMRK. So as a student, they then go into Object Viewer and they would take that code and they would plug it in here. So I would go and look for a code search and I would type in that code and I would place that in my space. And I could place multiple items in my space right now. I could pull that in. Here is an object that I took in and created from an app by scanning using my phone. And this item here, if it does load, this item here is Ellie the elephant. Just crashed on me. That's okay. Ellie the elephant is coming from Scotland. It's a classroom elephant. So I scanned Ellie, and while we were in Moscow, we brought Ellie around with us and we stamped her in that space as we walked around and looked at her. So really cool stuff that you can do with Object Viewer, and it all could be loaded in conjunction with all the other things that you have as well. You do want to look at that file format is important. That was a good question. And so definitely check out the different file format options. It is all listed on the Merge EDU as well. So from there, you create collections as well. You share out those collection codes so that people have access to all of that content instead of just one individual item as well. And now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some remote sharing options. And so looking at this to me is, you know, how do you take this and what I'm doing with you right now on Zoom and using my MacBook and my iPhone, and I have my Merge Cube, and I even have my Merge headset. I was going to start off with this and be silly, but I decided not to. But I have all these things here with me to be able to work in my own space. But what about my kids that are at home? How do I get them active and engaged? Of course, we went through printing their own Merge Cube or having it printed at their school available for them to pick up and put together. But some of the things that we're going to be talking about, one is some areas of remote learning that should be addressed that many people don't quite know when they first get started. Sorry, I have a Pomeranian and she's going to stop barking in a second. All right, so with that, you have lighting, and lighting is a big issue. So I'm going to show you here when I was showing you, let's go ahead and just add, I'll go ahead and just add this object here. And as I add this object in my space, okay, I'm going to also show you what's in front of me. So I just took the lampshade off of my lamp and I have it here placed in my space. And why is that important? Because if you have a lot of light behind you, your face is going to be really dark. And on videos, you just definitely want to be aware of not looking like the creepy person in the background, the dark face, right? So that's something that a lot of people, when they're getting started with remote learning, that they may not be aware of. And as simple as just taking the shade off of your lamp could be exactly the amount of light. Now, if I put my shade back on, it definitely would darken up my face. It would definitely disperse the light differently, but having it something right there in front of you, I typically place it right behind my computer. So that's an option that you can do that. And give you the chance to have the proper lighting. Audio, of course, is another big issue. You want to definitely have your audio set appropriately. In this case, I'm not even using a microphone, I'm just using my MacBook to be able to speak to you. But typically having something in your ears to hear and engage in discussion is really helpful. So having a headset is really helpful. And I know that there's one other thing, but I can't exactly remember what it was. Maybe Brandon can help me. I'm thinking that Brandon can help me. With that, there is one more thing that you always want to keep in mind with, especially when you're mirroring your device. And we'll come to that here in a second. So looking ahead now, we're going to go ahead and look at some of the ways that, oh, Brandon, text message. Okay, one thing you always want to be aware of is turning off your notifications. So in my case, I have the, right here on my device, as you can see here, you have the moon. And because I'm on an iOS device, I'm going to go ahead and select that. So as Brandon's trying to text me and engage with me, I mean, you know, on my watch as well. So some of those things that you want to have your notifications turned off on my MacBook, I can actually swipe over and turn off my notifications here by just swiping over on the right side of my trackpad and swiping over with 2 fingers. And typically it looks like that, but I can come over here and I can do that do not disturb and turn that on so that I'm not getting some notifications here on my screen as I am screen sharing or sharing any of that information. So keep that in mind, that would help you out. All right, and I will also turn off my notifications here. Okay, so with that, we also have a way to mirror your device. So what does that look like? So I'm using AirServer, but there are content also available with Reflector. And with being able to mirror your device is exactly what I'm doing here. And so as I'm coming into this, I swipe down, I go to where it says Jamie's MacBook. And when I first start off, I'll show you what this looks like. It's going to have my screen that will show me what I can mirror to, so screen mirroring. Here we go. And once it shows up on that, what options I have, I can select what I want to mirror to. In this case, I'm mirroring to my MacBook using AirServer. So because AirServer is active on my computer. Now, interestingly enough, it's pretty cheap. I mean, it's both AirServer and Reflector are very affordable. I was looking up Reflector yesterday because of that link here that you're going to see on slide 20 that I'll come back to. But you can see right here where it says screen mirroring, I select that, then it gives me my MacBook. And then when it is connected, you're going to see on my phone that it says Jamie's MacBook. So it gave me a chance to reflect. And then there in the background of my desktop, you can see that I can go through and demo content for my students. So that's, I think, really helpful. That will really help you know exactly what you can do. Oh, let me bring that back down. Okay, so within mirroring your device and using Reflector, for instance, Christine Danhoff was sharing out a great article that you can go back to. Hopefully Christine's on as well right now. And so she gave some great valuable information on how to get that started and how to use it. I want to say the educator license for it is under $20. So having access to it on your computer and being able to mirror. Now I used, back in the day, a long time ago, I was using AirServer and Reflector, and sometimes it's finicky. Certainly things have gotten better. Some of the problems you may run into in your school district, so this is like the benefit of being a remote learner and educator right now, is that you're not going to run into some of those same constraints that you do at your own house. So if you are restricted from mirroring in your typical classroom, this is the chance for you to use your own network, and you're not going to have those same kind of restrictions. So that's really nice. And so here you would go through and you would select that mirroring and follow that same process that we talked about earlier. So glad that Christine did that. Hopefully you were seeing that in your chat linked as well. But as you're going through and using this, you have a chance to have access to all of those apps that you just saw. You have 14-day access using it. Go into the link at tryemerge.com. Now, if you're downloading it on your own, and trying to use the trial, that's going to be different because that's not necessarily geared just to education. That's for anybody and everybody to have access to. And you have to use your credit card. But when you're going to trymerge.com, this gives you a chance to have access to, the whole EDU platform and seeing how to use these tools with your students. So this is a great time to get started. Trymerge.com is where you'll want to go, sign up, and then in Merge EDU, you'll have access even to more inside of Object Viewer, which is great. All right, time for Q&A. And this one's for Rochelle. Would love to hear kind of some of the questions. I can see we have 18 questions right now. So I'll get started on some of those questions and hopefully answer them for you. And then we will conclude here shortly. All right, so I have so many questions still to go through here. I'm sorry I can't go through them all. Definitely want to honor your time and what you're doing here and being here, and really excited to bring something innovative for your students. Thank you so much for taking the initiative to do that, and certainly reach out. I hope that you subscribe at ARVR and edu.com, and I'll go ahead and just show that screen here. And I will end briefly here. Let's see. All right. And give you a chance to follow up and, get any questions. If you need to respond to me by email, feel free to do that. If you want to connect on social media, feel free to do that. And hopefully we'll all be able to get through this season offering our kids things that maybe we had never thought of or heard of in the past. Feel free to share this out with any educators you think that will find this of value. And Merge, thank you guys so much for being in the background and helping to make this happen, sharing out with your community and allowing them to join in and participate and engage in the content as well. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end now, and let me know if you guys have any questions. So thank you again for joining me on Monday.